everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kristen, and thank you so much for coming on. Please hit that subscribe button as well as a thumbs up if you like this video. So today I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story when I was 19. I'm currently 19. My daughter is 7 months old. So let's get right into it. So I ended up having her at 34 weeks, which I explained my pregnancy story in my last video, so if you want to go watch that one, you can. But ended up having my daughter at 34 weeks. What I noticed was I was starting to get like blurry vision and tunnel vision and whatnot. When that happened, I ended up not feeling very well. I was kind of nauseous, so I stayed home from work for a couple of days, and I ended up calling my doctor's office, and she said that I need, she actually was out of town, so I talked to her nurse, and her nurse told me that I need to go to the emergency room. So I went back and I told my fiance Daniel, and I said that they told me to go to the emergency room, and I didn't feel like it was that urgent. I didn't think it was that bad. And he said, well, just to make sure, I'm worried, just go to the hospital, I'll go with you. So we ended up going to the hospital. I explained to them at the front desk what was going on. I was literally sitting in the waiting room for 6 hours before I was even able to get a room. So I was, the way I was in the waiting room for 6 hours. You'd think since it's pregnancy, then you would be able to get in faster. But in that case, our other hospital in my town is starting to close. They closed down their delivery wards, so there were a bunch of people in the waiting room. When I got back, they put me in code blue area, which was like really high risk, and they ended up telling me, well, your symptoms are showing that you might have preeclampsia, and there's a possibility that you might have to deliver the baby. They took me up to the delivery room, and I was lucky because someone just got discharged, and I was able to get the room they were in right away. So they ended up having to check for 24 hours. They had to check my urine to see if I had an excessive amount of protein, which if I did, that means I do have preeclampsia. My blood pressure was really high because of the preeclampsia, and they weren't able to get it down. And it started stressing out the baby. They came in after 24 hours and told me that I need to be induced. So they proceeded the process of inducing me, and I ended up not going that fast along with my delivery. It was my labor. It was just a really slow process. Around, I'd say right before I got my epidural, I was just really tired. I was irritated because the contractions were starting to come along, and I have a bunch of stuff strapped. They had 2 things strapped to my stomach, one to monitor contractions and one to monitor the heartbeat, and I just tore them off for like an hour. I just wanted to sleep, and I couldn't because I was so uncomfortable. And then an hour later, my nurse comes and she's like, sweetie, it's time to put your monitors back on. We have to monitor you. And I was like, okay, I just got mad. So they put the monitors back on, and then shortly after that I got my epidural because my doctor said I could get the epidural whenever I want. I was only at 2 centimeters. Like I said, I wasn't dilating that quickly. When I got the epidural, no one else was allowed in the room except for the nurse and the person giving me the epidural. So I leaned over my nurse. I just started freaking out. It felt like I was about to pass out, and she said, well, you like food? Because the whole time during my labor, I was watching Food Channel, and I wasn't allowed to eat. Everyone's like, you're torturing yourself. So she asked me, well, what type of food do you want to eat after this? And I started telling her, but I was still freaking out from the epidural, and I just stopped talking for a second and just started singing Simple Man, my favorite song to sing. It literally calmed me down. I didn't feel like I had to pass out anymore. It just calmed me down right away. So after my epidural, I was finally relieved for a while, and then I started to feel, towards the end, I started to feel everything on my right side. So my epidural started to stop working on my right side, but I kept on pushing that button and it was not working. It was just completely numbing my left side and not my right. I got all the way up to 8 centimeters, and they told me that I'm not dilating anymore, that I'm gonna have to have a C-section. The baby's stressed, I'm stressed. So I started freaking out. Daniel, my fiance, was in the corner. He was like in shock. He's about to have a baby, I'm about to have a baby, and we're both freaking out. And then a bunch of my family starts coming in, and it's just overwhelming because there's so many people in there. And the doctor looked at me, he's like, only focus on me. You listen to me. This is what's going to happen. You need to calm down. We're going to get you prepped. What are your concerns? And I told him I'm scared that it's going to hurt. And he said, don't worry, the anesthesiologist will take care of that. So they start to, since I already had the epidural in, they started to give me a really high dose of numbing medication. And when I got back into the room to have a C-section, they tell me, so you're gonna just feel some pressure. And I was actually feeling a lot. I was explaining to him what you're cutting me open. I could feel that. I was able to feel everything on my right side for the whole C-section. And the anesthesiologist kept on putting in a bunch of pain reliever, and it just was not working. So I finally got to meet my daughter. Sorry guys, Wednesday ended up waking up. But this is her, just so you know. But Daniel, he took her into the NICU with all the nurses because she was so early, and they said she was fine. So he ended up taking her to see the family and whatnot. And they bring the baby back to me while they're getting me prepared to go back to my room. I'm just with one of the nurses. She's typing up all my paperwork, and I was literally numb. I could not move at all, except from my, I'd say my stomach down, I wasn't able to move. And so they hand me the baby, and I'm scared. I'm dozing out because I'm so medicated. I can't hold the baby right now. I'm afraid that I'm gonna drop her. And the nurse said, you're okay, you're okay. If you fall asleep, then I'll get her from you. And I'm like, if I fall asleep, I've heard multiple stories of babies dying because the mom is so medicated after C-section that the baby ends up getting suffocated because mom does fall asleep. So I was freaking out. I was like, keep awake, keep awake. And the doctor, or the nurse, walks out of the room, and I'm holding the baby all by myself. I'm freaking out because I'm like just dozing out so bad, and I'm just like trying to stay awake. And then she finally comes back, and everything was okay. And she was in the NICU for a week and a half. She didn't have any oxygen. She just had a feeding tube, so she basically just had to learn how to eat. So that is the end of my video. on my labor and delivery. If you guys liked it, once again, give it a thumbs up and please hit that subscribe button.